Welcome to another great event here at Silicon Flatiron Center. My name is Matt Schmidt. I'm the new executive director here. This is the start of week 2 for me, so I'm trying not to mess it up. I think so far so good. Well, folks, I'm really excited. I feel like I can give an acceptance speech, but that's not happening, guys. This is the third in a series of 3 great conversations we're having on AI. And tonight, the focus on AI and the future of the legal profession. I'd love to wax on about it, but I think we've got others who know way more than I do. But first, I'd like to invite Dean Inniss here to say some welcoming remarks. Enjoy yourselves tonight and have a great show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. And let me just say, it is such a pleasure to have you. We are delighted that you have joined us. It is really my honor and pleasure to be here tonight for this installment of our Silicon Flatiron's Ethics series. This is a program that invites us to think deeply about the ethical dimensions of technology, entrepreneurship, and public policy. These conversations remind us that ethics and the rule of law, something that we talk a lot about these days, have much to do with policy in this space. This series is made possible through a partnership between Silicon Flatirons and the Daniels Fund Ethics Initiative Collegiate Program at Colorado Law. I want to express our sincere gratitude to the Daniels Fund for their ongoing support and for modeling the ethical principles that guide this work: integrity, trust, accountability, transparency, fairness, respect, the rule of law, and viability. You will see these principles come alive in tonight's discussion, not simply as abstract ideals, but as touchstones for the professional practice that we all like to engage in an era of profound technological change. And I know that's something that we've often said a lot of. It is probably every single day, or at least every other day, that I reflect on the fact that when I was in high school, for example, there was no internet and there were no cell phones. And I think, wow, what would I have been if I'd had those things? I don't know. I can only say that even as those represented amazing changes for us, we still have so much to look forward to and see. At Colorado Law, the Silicon Flatiron Center sits at the vital intersection of technology, innovation, and law. And the work of the center exemplifies our commitment to thought leadership and to preparing students and professionals to navigate the complex world of legal and ethical conundrums of the digital age, a period characterized by the shift from traditional industries to an economy based on information technology, and this significantly impacts communication, commerce, social interactions, and much, in our context, law. The use of AI, one of the most recent aspects of the digital age, may at times evoke fear. And I know I see that a lot, especially as I'm dealing with certain of our faculty members and even some of our students. And I must admit, even my young adult children who are, despite being born well into the digital age, oddly Luddite on this matter. Whenever I say AI, they sort of hiss and boo, and I'm hoping to move them from that space. You know, it's worth recalling, however, that AI is first and foremost, as I tell my kids frequently, it's a powerful tool, whether it's used in education or in the world of industry and law. An example that I'd like to give is how, when I was a summer associate during law school, I spent long hours, as I think some of you did, reading thousands of pages of documents, line after line, searching for pieces of evidence in a case. This was the infamous document review that so many summer associates and young associates had to do not that long ago. And I have to tell you, at times, I felt like the girl in the old fairy tale who was required to spin straw into gold. I literally felt like that when they sort of pushed me into this room, windowless room, at a beautiful firm on a very high floor of a Century City law firm in Los Angeles, but I didn't get to look out the window for most of the time that I spent there, at least in those early summers. You know, what I was doing at that time was, at least in my mind, transforming heaps of raw material into something valuable through sheer effort and persistence. That experience was, for a long time, the traditional model of legal labor, intensely time-consuming, repetitive, and reliant on human endurance more than on tools of efficiency. In fact, my student peers and I used to brag about how many hours we could put in at the firm just going through thousands and thousands of pages. Well, I have to say that not many years later, when optical character recognition, or OCR technology emerged, it felt revolutionary. Suddenly, we could scan paper documents, convert them into searchable text, locate key information in minutes. Now, I think as many of you who are in the practice now will acknowledge, OCR did not replace lawyers. It relieved us of drudgery and allowed us to focus on analysis, strategy, and judgment. It expanded the scope and the speed of what we could accomplish. Now, looking back, I see OCR as the precursor to modern AI, especially large language models and document review systems that now, they don't just find the words for you, they identify precedents, they summarize cases, and they even generate draft arguments, though it is still advisable for young lawyers and old lawyers to pay close attention to what those arguments consist of. AI is transforming the cognitive terrain of legal work, not just the mechanical aspects like finding words. And I know that this has provoked excitement and some anxiety, worry that automation will offer unfair advantages or de-skill lawyers or make human expertise obsolete. But I'm here to tell you, and I think you would agree with me, history suggests otherwise. What AI can do is to help us refine the contours of legal expertise rather than erase those contours. We are freed from the tedium of certain repetitive tasks, and both students and professionals can work on conceptual understanding, design, and analysis. Now, whether you're a student or an alum of our school, or a faculty member, a practitioner, a community member, or a tech pioneer, we really value the opportunity to partner with you and connect across disciplines, to share insights, and to ask hard questions about what it means to act responsibly with AI in a rapidly evolving world. And I have to tell you, there's probably not a day that there is not some change in the way that AI is being deployed, both in our field, in law and as lawyers, and in other fields. This evening's program continues that tradition of reflection, and we're honored today to host a conversation between Colorado Law's own Professor Harry Surden and Professor David Levine of Elon University School of Law, followed by a distinguished panel that will explore the future of legal labor. And we think, in fact, dare I say, we know that these conversations are going to be provocative and illuminating. And so, without much further ado, it is my very great pleasure to introduce Professor Harry Surden. Professor Harry Surden holds the Hatfield Professorship of Law and serves as faculty director of the Artificial Intelligence Initiative at Colorado Law and Silicon Flatirons in particular. He is recognized nationally as a leading scholar at the intersection of AI and law. And in fact, it's probably several times a week that I utter your name, Harry, when speaking to our partners across campus when they say, maybe the law school should do something on AI. Guys, we're already doing it. I urge you to engage with us so that we can share with you our tremendous expertise. Now, Harry is known for his origination of the concept of computable contracts and for his influential scholarship on AI ethics, large language models, machine learning, and the future of legal systems. His work reflects the very best of Colorado law. It's innovative, it's rigorous, and deeply attuned to the human dimensions of technology. And so, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Harry Surden.
There we go. Well, thank you, Dean, for that far too kind introduction. And it's such an honor to be here. There are many people I want to thank today who worked so hard to put this together. Melanie Kay, Matt Schmidt, Nate Mariotti, Christine McCluskey, Sarah Schnickrand, Shannon Sturgeon. Also, our former executive director, Brad Bernthal, and all the other folks at Silicon Flatirons who worked so hard to create such a welcoming environment. I also want to welcome, thank you. I was going to welcome our guests of honor, Dave Levine, and our many panelists who are going to talk later. Today I'm going to provide an overview of our research on artificial intelligence and the legal labor market. Largely, this has involved borrowing work from labor economists, particularly economists David Otter, Eric Ben-Yoltsin, and Daron Acemoglu, who are the leading economists in this area. And my hope is to leave you optimistic, or at least less anxious. So what I'm going to talk about here, first of all, is validate all of our anxiety about the future of AI. Every day we see a new article about how AI will be taking our jobs or eliminating jobs. And then I'm going to show you all the evidence that such detailed predictions about AI and its impact on the labor market, how they're very unreliable. And the reason is the following: our intuitions about how technology affects the labor market are often too simple, and the underlying emergence of the technology, where it will go, and its interaction with the labor market and the larger economy are simply too complex to predict reliably. But we will see some larger trends are predictable, which is different than saying the details about how this will affect jobs in any meaningful way are predictable. So that will be our key distinction. For example, there is no reasonable way to say reliably what jobs will be affected either positively or negatively, when this will occur, on what timescale. And then finally, we'll take this powerful framework from labor economics and apply it to the legal profession, and then we'll turn it over to our fireside chat. So we've all seen this out there. Every day you bring up a newspaper or a website, and there are confident predictions about the demise of high-skilled labor, whether it's the AI bloodbath, whether it's law, whether it's medicine. And these are very confident predictions from very smart people, from the heads of AI labs, from business leaders, from politicians. Then this creates anxiety when you see it every single day. Every day you'll see, will AI lawyers render lawyers obsolete? Just last week, Bernie Sanders confidently told us 100 billion jobs are likely to be replaced. So what should we make of this? Should we take this at face value and be scared, these predictions? Well, I'm going to show you how I think about it as a researcher and how researchers approach this, and I'll hope to impart some of that tool set to you. And I approach these questions with a lot of skepticism. And the skepticism is based upon looking backwards and seeing how reliable such predictions are and how reliable such predictions actually can be. And what I want to impart to you is skepticism, no matter how confident these predictions are in terms of their vehemence or who is saying them, whether it's a Nobel Prize winner or a politician or a business leader, somebody who you think might know better. I will encourage you to be skeptical by showing you evidence that they are routinely unreliable, and these questions are just face fundamental uncertainty that even the smartest and most reliable people can't predict reliably. So on one hand, you can think of this as a negative talk, because I'm not promising you certainty about an uncertain future. In fact, I'm promising you uncertainty. That's my main promise to you. But in a different way, it's quite optimistic. It can be liberating from the doom scrolling articles that we see every day, predicting doom and chaos with certainty and confidence. Rather, I'm going to impart to you a tool set for critically evaluating these claims the way we do as researchers, to say, are these things we should take at face value, or maybe are there questions and problems with the analysis, and maybe what they're presenting us is one out of many possible futures and not necessarily a probable prophecy about the future. So, okay, so what is the best we can do as a researcher? The best you can really do is go back and look at the historical evidence and then evaluate. You want to evaluate the claims about how reliable they were and how reliable they could be, while trying to get a broad sample of predictions And then when claims are reliable, you want to figure out, were they reliable because they were based upon a rigorous methodology or because there was just one of many claims that happened to pan out? So where they were right, why were they right? And where they were wrong, why were they wrong? And we also separately want to assess the level of confidence. So there are different ways you can frame a prophecy about the future. You can frame it as this is something that will happen, or this is a possible future that might happen. And often we've seen in the media that the claims are of the former. This is a vehement claim about what will happen, as if looking into a crystal ball. Okay, so looking at the evidence, what does the research show? There's quite a lot of evidence showing that strong, detailed historical claims about technology and the impact on the labor market are almost always wrong. And they're almost always wrong for a number of reasons. And I'm talking about detailed claims about what job sectors will be affected by the technology, when this will occur, whether the impact will be positive or negative. And it's there's a simple reason. It's because the complexities of the technology and the labor market, when combined, just make it too hard to predict at any detailed level, which is different from saying broad general trends. So the details are hard to get right, and the details matter, but the details are what you hear in the news all the time. So if we look at the work of Besson, Otter, Arntz, Gregory, Zeron, Gimbel, very rigorous studies about predictions about what supposed to happen, and then we use evidence of what has actually happened in the labor market. And time again, the details get wrong. So how do we think about predictions? Well, I think the way to think about it, and this is the way I encourage you, are not a prophecy, but a range of possible predictions. Certainly some of these predictions might come true, but also some positive versions or some neutral versions come true. And I'll show you how we, as researchers, think about a range of possibilities and how you deal with the inherent uncertainty, because there are ways to deal with this. Okay. Okay, so let's look at a really famous case study. So Geoffrey Hinton, who's widely regarded as the godfather of AI. I really admire his work, incredible work. It's no exaggeration to say without his work on backpropagation, we wouldn't have the modern artificial intelligence systems that we see today in self-driving cars or ChatGPT. He also won the Nobel Prize. So you might think somebody like that would be able to predict the future of labor and the economy. And indeed, he tried. So in 2016, he made the following confident claim. People should stop training radiologists now. Within 5 years, it will be replaced by deep learning. So it's a kind of syllogism, he said. And I very much admire his work, I should say. But his syllogism is very similar to the kind of syllogism you see out there in the world. It is AI is starting to get good at this particular job over here. Therefore, AI will replace the job. So some of his predictions came true. His high-level prediction about AI indeed being as good at, if not better than radiologists in terms of detecting tumors in imaging is true. Today, they meet or exceed, but his predictions about the labor market were entirely wrong, right? So fast forward to 2025, we know the data, we know what has happened, and radiologists are increasing demand. In fact, there's radiologist shortages, pay is increasing, and some might argue, well, maybe this is a short-term trend, and that is entirely possible. But we know for a fact that his 5-year prediction was wrong, right? So let's look at what went wrong. And to do this, we're applying the results from the framework from the leading labor economists. So what did Geoffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize winner and godfather of AI, get wrong about this prediction? The first thing he did was confuse the task with the job. So what economists tell us, we don't think of a job as a single unitary thing. We think of it as a bundle of tasks. So if you think about a radiologist is not just an image recognizer. Rather, a radiologist has a range of medical tasks, of which one task is recognizing images, but there's a whole variety of tasks, including interacting with patients and making medical diagnosis, et cetera, et cetera. And what tends to happen, and you see this in the media, is we take an overly simplistic view of a job. The view of a job that comes readily to mind, a few obvious tasks. So another famous example has to do with bank tellers. So, and even as recently as 2011, President Obama made this mistake. So what do bank tellers do? Well, under this model, they give customers cash, and that's all they do. So if we have automated teller machines give customers cash. Therefore, under the simple model, bank tellers go away. So under the simple prediction, you would have hypothesized in the 80s and 90s that bank tellers would have gone away. But of course, this is not actually what happened. In fact, bank teller occupation increased and reached an all-time high by 2014, doubling at its level in the 80s. And the problem was it was an overly simplistic view of the job. It was confusing the task with the job, but bank tellers do a lot of other aspects. So freeing up, giving out money allowed bank tellers to do a lot of other value-added things, such as communicating with customers about loans and services and many other aspects. So this is the same issue that we're seeing with a lot of predictions out there in the world. And I'll give you another example shortly. Okay, yeah, another big problem, as we will see, is that technology can sometimes substitute, and that's what the human mind focuses on. We think about the ditch diggers being replaced by steam shovels, and we think about the factory workers being replaced by machines. And that indeed does happen sometimes, but in many cases, technology can complement. It can make somebody more effective using it as a tool, and that's actually more often what happens. Technology tends to complement knowledge workers rather than substituting knowledge workers. And in that case, it actually makes the work more valuable and in more demand because it improves quality, it can improve productivity, and that might be part of what's happening in radiology. So indeed, AI has infused its way into radiology, but radiologists are using AI as a tool to get better at diagnosing. So rather than substituting for their job, it's actually making them better at their job. They're able to serve more patients more reliably. The research is still out on that because it's too new, but that's one of the theories out there. And we will see in many other high-skilled labor, it's too hard to predict whether technology will complement a task, thereby making it more valuable or substituting for a task. So that's another thing a lot of these confident predictions get wrong. And indeed, we see this all the time when it comes to computer code, right? So every day you see a question about how AI is going to obsolete computer programmers because AI can already do computer programming, but they're not thinking of the complementary aspects of AI and computer programming. The third problem has to do with timing and dilution. So it's really hard to predict when a technology like AI is going to emerge and when it's going to make a big enough impact to be measured either positively or negatively. So one thing I always point out to lawyers is that electronic legal research like Westlaw and Nexus started in the 1970s, but it wasn't until about 2000 to 2010 that it actually became widely common. So it took 30 to 40 years. And the same is true of many technologies. We see them being used, but it takes a long time for their impact on the labor market and the job to be filled. So we are seeing AI being diffused out there, and the jury is still out, so to speak, to what extent it is affecting a lot of different markets, even though we know it is being used. So that's another mistake that Jeffrey Hinton made. It may be indeed that at some point AI will affect radiologists, but we don't know when. Is it 5 years? Is it 30 years? Is it 50 years? Or maybe never? And then finally, and this is the biggest reason, the economy is just too complex to make confident predictions. Technology is by no means the only thing that is affecting labor and employment. Macroeconomic cycles, global supply and demand, business cycles, changing tastes and preferences. So when you focus on something like AI and make a prediction about the labor impacts, you're elevating but one dimension of 5 to 10, some of which are equally important. And there's really no way to reliably predict how that's going to affect the job market in the future. Okay, so I'm delivering what I promised, which is uncertainty. We really don't know how AI is going to affect any labor market, and in particular, the legal labor market. But now we have a way of thinking about it. We know that a job, like a lawyer, is made of multiple tasks. Whether it's brief writing or working with clients or writing tasks or problem solving, et cetera. The list goes on and on. And we know that AI might substitute for some of those tasks, but it also might complement some of those tasks, thereby increasing productivity. And when a task is substituted, it often in high-skilled labor opens up that time to be put to other value uses. So we really don't know whether AI will help or hurt the labor market. What we know in the past is, in general, new technologies have tended to help labor markets and increase productivity, while it is true that some sectors and some individuals are displaced. But basically, it is unpredictable. AI itself is unpredictable, let alone AI's impact on the labor market. So let me conclude, and then we'll have our fireside chat here. The best we can do is predict high-level trends 3 to 5 years out. Beyond that, the research shows that even our prediction of trends are unreliable. So predictions about AI beyond 3 years or technology, just incredibly unreliable. So we can make general statements with reasonable confidence, like computing will expand and probably get better. AI itself will get better. At what rate and how fast, we do not know. We can also say that technology tends to change jobs, and it tends to diffuse its way into jobs. Whether it affects positively or negatively, again, we cannot say. It's because the details are hard to get right. Okay, so how should we treat, and how would a researcher treat this? Well, what we do is we think of this as a distribution, a range of possible options. Some are positive, some are negative, and the goal is to gather evidence as to which one of those paths is being followed. That's really the best you can do, is at the moment gather economic evidence, technological evidence, and see which one of these paths we're going to, or even yet a path we may not have thought of. So we're gonna talk about this in a fireside chat, how government and industry and the private and public sector, their best bet is to plan for a range of possibilities while gathering evidence and being flexible as to different options. As we get to our fireside chat, let me first introduce our